Hi there, it's me, it's Holly, I'm back. Welcome back. Okay, so in this video, I wanted to talk more about what I've discovered over the weekend of how loved I truly was in my childhood and how I, until recently, didn't notice it. I didn't realize it was there because I came here to experience what it is to not be loved. And most of us at the moment are here to experience not being loved. There's lots of experiences that we come for. Some of us come to experience what it is to not be free. Others come to experience what it is to be in chaos, to not be in peace, because this is who we are in our natural state. There are so many things that we come to experience to know ourselves more fully. When I say to know ourselves, I'm talking about our soul, our higher self, not this human being, Most of the books, when you go through, especially from the third one on, from When Love Leaves, you'll find talk about how we are spirit having a human experience. That is what we come to do. So in this video, I wanted to talk more about noticing the love that was always there. Because what came to my attention over the weekend was I grew up with my parents telling me stories that when I was little, I didn't like being cuddled. I was very detached from the people around me. And they would come and, my parents would want to come and cuddle me or give me a kiss, or, my mum might come and kiss my cheek. And if she'd try and kiss it twice, I'd be wiping it off and pushing her away, as a little one. That was just my personality. And so, my dad would tell stories that I would be playing. I would be in my own little world playing with toys or whatever I had in front of me. And he would come and he would want to be a part of the game that I was playing. I was an only child for 5 years, So he would want to come and interact with me to play. And I would get frustrated and I would get upset with him because he was doing it all wrong and he was interfering in my game, that I'd already created in my mind. This is how this game was going to play out, and he didn't understand it, and so many times I would get upset and frustrated and shoo him off, leave me alone. I'm good. I want to do this on my own, I want to play by myself. So I grew up with these stories, and over the weekend it only just hit me, The other thing I was told was that when I started school, I already knew how to read. I don't know how, but my parents were like blown away, by, they just thought that I was super intelligent or something. But my parents didn't know how to speak English. Barely. They could barely speak a word or two, when they got here. And I was born pretty much straight away, like pretty much as soon as they got here, I was born. So they didn't have time to learn the language. And they were just blown away that I could read. Like somehow I had learned by myself how to read before I started school. And so there were many decisions along the way that were made that I couldn't understand for the life of me, growing up. But in this past weekend, that all made sense, Like they were really keen on sending me to private schools. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand why they would want to send me to these private schools, because I didn't want to go there, They sent me to a Catholic school in year 3 and year 4. Year 3 to year 4. Yeah, I'm trying to think, because I was there for about a year and a half. And all they would do is talk about the devil, and that was the last thing I wanted to know about, And so I remember it was the first time in school. See, this was the other thing as well, that I was very unusual, because I didn't have friends at school. Like in primary school, from kindergarten to year 3, I didn't have any friends. I couldn't understand the dynamics of the friendships to be with others. So I used to spend all my time in the library reading, because I thought that learning was the most important thing, to keep learning, to keep growing and expanding my mind, I was like fascinated with learning. And so from kinder to year 3, I didn't have friends. I don't remember being with other children. I remember always being with a book, reading. I was just so interested in this world, in learning everything that I could about this world. And so that was one thing, that they could see that I was different in that way as well, So they sent me off to this Catholic school. And this Catholic school, day in and day out, they just talked about the devil, the devil, the devil. And it was so much so that it created this incredible fear inside me, that we were going to be taken to hell. Because according to the church, you were never good enough, to go to heaven. Nothing you did was ever good enough to get there. So you were bound to go to hell, and like it was inevitable in their eyes that you had to go there, because it was impossible to get to heaven to be with God. So within that year, I tried to make a friend, to be a friend, to have a friend. And this beautiful girl, I invited her to my birthday party. And I remember that day sitting at the front window, the whole afternoon waiting for her to come. She lived in the street just behind me, and I waited and waited and waited, and she never came. But then the most difficult thing was that when I went back to school, she stopped talking to me. She avoided me altogether. She didn't want anything to do with me. And so now I had no choice but to be listening to the teachers and the grown-ups and the priests going on about the devil and the devil and the devil, and I just caved. I was like, one day I remember waking up crying that I didn't want to go back to this school, and I would go to bed crying because I had to go back to that school in the morning, and that was my routine until my parents took me out of that school. I woke up crying because I was terrified. I didn't want to go to the school, and I would go to bed crying thinking, oh my God, I have to go to this school again tomorrow, and I hate it there. That's basically, I hated being there, So that was the only time throughout my whole primary school years that I tried to have a friend, between kindy and year 6. And it failed, epically. It was an epic fail. So looking back, I'm thinking as a mother, once I was a mother, and I'm looking back at the sort of child I was so unusual. I wasn't the usual kid. I didn't even eat like normal kids, I remember my dad saying one day, they'd give me a piece of chocolate and I would always ask for it to be wrapped because I didn't want to get my fingers dirty. I was one of these kids that was like constantly washing their hands, constantly having to have their hands cleaned, and I just didn't like dirt. I was like germaphobe. And so there was that on top of everything else. But looking back now, how my parents raised me and all the decisions that they made along the way, I realized that they were all made out of love. They didn't force me to cuddle them because I didn't like being cuddled. And they didn't force me to play with them because I was quite happy playing on my own. And then when my sister came, she was the complete opposite. She was so clingy with my mum and so needy, and she was on top of her 24/7. My mum was like pulling her hair out because she went from one child that didn't want to be bothered, she wanted to be left alone to do her, be in her own little world, to a child now that was constantly in her face, There was like no in the middle, in between. Where's the, where's the child that's in the middle that's not one or the other? Why do they have to be both extremes? And then I remember my dad saying one day, I asked for a child that was a little bit messy, because I was like, didn't want any, anything on my fingers, on my hands. I didn't like getting dirty. My sister was the opposite. She'd have all over her face, all in her hair, all in her hands. And again, they were like, why can't we just have something in the middle? Why does it have to be the other extreme? We didn't want it that clean and that, disconnected from the rest of the world, but this is like the total opposite, So it was really funny. But then I understood why my mum had the relationship that she had with my sister, because my sister was always in her face. She didn't have a choice but to give her all her attention once she started to get older, as she was growing up, But yeah, looking back, they respected who I was. And they didn't try to make me something that I wasn't. And all the decisions, when I look back, every decision that they made throughout my childhood was thinking that it was the best thing for me. It's what I needed to keep growing, you know, for my mind and for all of me, you know. So I was very loved, you know. All of those things, I couldn't see them until, you know, my daughter was born and I went through the experience of being a mother. And then I understood what it is to have a newborn baby in the house. You know, so many things we can't understand from our parents until we go through them. And then we know, oh, this is what they must have been feeling. Or this is what they must have been thinking. You know? The love is there. Always. So in the next video, we're going to talk more about what happens when we have parents that don't. It's not that they don't. It's that they can't love us. All right, my darlings? I love you guys. Remember to click like and subscribe so you don't miss any of the messages. And I'll see you in the next video, okay? Bye for now.